Okay, I decided that the big thing that I have to learn the rules for, and it was almost, but got superseded, it was almost Barbarians at the Gate, which is a Compass Barbarian Invasions CDG type thing, written, I believe, by the same guy who did one that I really liked, but has some trouble with it, Europe in Turmoil. I think that came out in a second edition, though, with some corrections to it. So that was a fun game. So I kind of bought this on the designer, his feel for history. But anyway, that is not what I'm doing next. You might know what I'm doing next, but it depends on how much of my videos you watch. But I'm excited about it. So this is the Battle of Vimiero, which is an interesting situation. It's out of the Talavera box up there, which is kind of a neat collection if you think about it. In and of itself, it comes with two battles from Spain, Talavera, and then this much smaller Vimiero, which is almost a skirmish, really. However, of vital importance. But you can also print and play the two other 3.0 rule set games that came out at the same time. They were never published. They were just, released to the public, kind of as is. They may have some issues about them. Montebello, which is in the Italian campaign, and the one I just did, Espinosa. So what makes this one so exciting is that, first of all, it's sort of Wellesley's first battle, Duke of Wellington, in the Peninsular Campaign. He's not in command, though. Or not overall command. He's in command of the battle for a while. The English army, this is pretty much their entire field army, and it's not very big. If you look at it, there's not a lot of boxes here for the army of a nation, has landed in Portugal, and within 13 days, who is the governor of Portugal, essentially. I don't remember what he's at. I mean, he's made a duke of something or other, but I think he has a title that gives him, control over all Portugal. He sort of walked in, seized Portugal without a fight, and now there's some resistance beginning to form. And at the same time, the British land, and they're gathering around Vimiero. And this is a situation where, on paper, in terms of what he's got in Portugal, has maybe 50% more troops than Wellesley has. However, the reality of it is the armies are kind of well matched. It takes up a lot more space, but you can kind of see they're about the same size when you look at it. My photocopying is not good. This is pretty damn good for what it can do. There are no big stripes going through it except right at the top. Sometimes it takes a while to get warmed up, and it seems to have done that here. But this is better than I expected. Let's see, what do we have to say here? So yeah, if Junot marches down to meet the English and doesn't seem to have a real plan of what to do. Engages in a battle kind of sporadically, ends up being defeated because he's going in piecemeal and whatnot, and then kind of seeking terms, and he surrenders all of Portugal and leaves on his own. The analysis in the game itself kind of puts it that he got a pretty good deal, actually, because he got full honors of war. The entire force was expatriated back to France. On the other hand, I don't know if the defeat was sufficient to say, yeah, I give up. Okay. So, For some reason or another, I have the Talavera rules here. Let's see. Apparently the Atlantic Ocean is somewhere here. I'm guessing it's way up here behind that track. It really, yeah, you can't move on it. You can't move underneath the track either, in my opinion. Okay. Special rules in the game. So the British are coming in with no core structure, not really an army structure, as they put it in the rule book. They're basically a 17th century, they say 17th century. I would say 18th century army probably, but I think they said 17th century. I'm looking for this now. The formation is just, not set up anything like you'll see in any of these Napoleonic battles anywhere else, really, because the English have no idea how to command their army in the current time. So each brigade is separate, but they can't be given independent orders. The artillery and cavalry are allowed to move around within 8 commander movement points of the army headquarters. Unfortunately, it's a hilly area. It's not as bad as Espinosa was, but it's not going to be pretty. On the bright side, the map and counters are full size. I didn't print and play it badly. It came printed this correctly. If Wellesley is a casualty, he's replaced by either Ferguson or Hill until Berard, who's Wellesley's commander, arrives. If he's killed, either Ferguson or Hill will replace him, and Wellesley is considered to be sulking and doesn't get involved in the battle. So there's no real reason to get Berard killed. Now, I don't know if I have a Berard counter. There he is. I have to figure out where he goes on the turn record track, that's all. Okay. Which means I may be 1 commander short, which wouldn't be unlikely because this game and Talavera share some counters, some intentional, some not. For the purpose of divisional wreckage, you consider the entire British Army a super division that's wrecked when 5 infantry brigades have been wrecked. 4 if anyone other than Wellesley's in command, and we got that here, tracked. Okay. This army wreckage will only affect Berard and victory conditions. There's some special rules as to when Berard arrives. He will not arrive if the army's wrecked, which means Wellesley has a chance to recover before Berard shows back up. I guess it would be seen as too big a harsh to have him show up with an already wrecked army. Okay. And the other thing, obviously, the victory conditions. Temporary divisions can be formed around commanders Hill, Ferguson, and Crawford. Okay. Hill starts the game on the board with a temporary division of these 3 brigades. Ferguson and Crawford are kept off board until they're called upon to lead one. Temporary divisions are going to be the commander's brigade and up to 2 other brigades and can include an artillery unit. They're formed by sending an order, either by aid or in person, to the commander's brigade. The order must state which units, and in my orders section, I list all the units which apply to that new command. The order must state which brigades and artillery units are to be included in the division along with the commander's brigade, as well as what the temporary formation is supposed to do. When the order is accepted, the commander is placed with the brigade and starts to function as a divisional commander. If the temporary division fails a stoppage check, it carries out a loose cannon result, or the commander is a casualty, the division stops existing and the commander counter is removed. The temporary division cannot be created by using initiative, but once it's in existence, the commander can roll for initiative. Infantry brigades not assigned to a division are considered to be on automatic defend-in-place orders, not no orders, and may not move at all except to move 1 hex into close combat. They may also still change formation and facing, send out skirmishers and extensions, as well as obey morale results. And you can't kind of cheat your extensions to make, you can't extend the central unit into a different hex. Is what I'm saying, or trying to say. The only way the brigade's main counter can move is by moving along with Wellesley as he moves. While directing brigades, Wellesley himself only pays commander's movement point for the movement, not for things like formation changes, but the unit can move along following him. So he can have more movement points, and you don't really worry about, are they in the same place at the same time, type of issues. He can move to one brigade, move it for a couple of hexes, then move over to another brigade and move it if desired. He doesn't need to follow a unit into close combat. All he has to do is move it up next to the enemy, and then he can go wander off and do something else. Berard. Roll a die at the beginning of each command phase starting at 10:30 a.m. We'll put him here to remind us. On a 1 or 2, he'll appear at the Army headquarters and take command. When this happens, Wellesley is removed from the map, any orders in transit are canceled, and any temporary divisions in existence have an automatic stoppage. I think that requires an emergency withdrawal, too. Which may not be intended. Play then proceeds as normal, with Berard commanding the army, just as Wellesley does, which I think includes being able to walk up and command units. If the British army is wrecked when Berard's arrival is called for, Berard will wait in the wings for the army to recover before taking over. I don't know if you even roll for him. That could make a difference, like he's due to come, like he's coming, but he decides not to because the army's wrecked. Infantry training. Neither British nor Portuguese can use combat columns. The English have a light infantry skirmisher, a light infantry unit up here, which has A quality skirmishers. These are allowed to move up to 3 hexes from any friendly non-skirmisher. I don't remember what the limit is. I think it's 2. So, it's not that big a difference. The British artillery is restricted to moving no more than 3 hexes in a turn because they don't have horses. And the wagons can't move at all. There's 2 wagons. They're going to be kind of victory point goals. Here's one that's weird. Being equipped with the new spherical case shot, British artillery pieces enjoy a +1 die roll modifier when firing at artillery units. Okay. I don't know if that's what they mean. But +1 is bad. +1 will not get you results. I didn't bother looking up, and maybe I will, what the situation here is in the battle. Whether that case shot was faulty, or if it was more effective and this is going in the wrong direction. And whether or not a -1, if it was in the wrong direction, actually makes sense, because this may be an artifact from translating from 2.0 rules to 3.0, in the sense that maybe some of the charts weren't completed when these ideas were come up with. Beautiful language use. All right. For the French, all commanders have their command ratings reduced by 1 when rolling for initiative, regardless of who's in command. If Junot becomes a casualty, Kellerman takes over, followed by either of Lossoin or de la Borde, who we will henceforth call Labradoodle. I don't know. The French may freely assign brigades between commanders as long as no commander controls more than 1 brigade more than he controlled at the start of the scenario. The French artillery may either move freely within 8 command movement points of the army headquarters or be assigned to a division. So in some ways, the French have a weird structure here too, where these divisions can be, reassembled and everything. All French units have combat columns, including the Légion de Midi, should it be used. Sounds like music compression. For the scenario itself, we got French reinforcements. I have to set them up on the track as well. I haven't done so, but they come in early in the morning in Area A, which I believe is over here. I can see a little A there. There we go. My eyes are not able to handle this kind of game anymore, I'm fearing. Beginning at 12 a.m. Okay. Again, we're hitting this problem. They mean 12 p.m. in U.S. standard. Roll 1 die during each French command phase. On a roll of a 6, the 366th line enters at entry area A. Okay. Let's see if I can find that thing. There it is. Put that here, because that's going to be a special case, and I won't see that in the immediate reinforcements. And there are enough problems with this game that I don't want any complexity added. The Army headquarters, okay, there are orders for the Army headquarters to move. It doesn't look like the rest of the units have orders. All other formations move within 2 of the Army headquarters and await further orders. Yeah, okay, so they do, but... English normal setup. Hill has command, but he has already defensive orders to defend the hill west of Vimiero against attacks from the south. What does this mean? Right? There are no defensive orders in this version of the rules. It was an optional rule in the old set. It feels like very similar to the kind of thing that I was doing with these kind of, I tried to use complex orders for falling back, which apparently I didn't need to. Those could be defensive orders and don't really need orders at all. But here I've got specific orders, and it gets worse than that. It gets worse than that. He commands the brigades. His orders are to defend the hill west of Vimiero against attacks from the south. So if somehow the French come in from the north, do I ignore them? I don't think so. I have never seen orders, I can't guarantee that. But it's what I say quite often with these games is the orders that are written in the game often feel like they're written by people who don't understand the rules. Or I really don't understand the rules, but at least some of them are written by people who don't understand the rules because they kind of conflict with each other in style and whatnot. And defense is just sort of defend in place. There is no defensive orders in this rule set. Again, might be a leftover from something else. What I feel is that if you give something defending orders, they have some capacity to move around, and you can get rid of that bolted down garbage, which to me is bullshit if you give yourself orders. Now, if you fall into a default defense, I don't mind the bolting down. If you fall into no orders, I don't mind the bolting down. But if you have orders to actively defend something, you should have some capacity to move around. Anyway, we talked about that in the last one, I think. The British were here to survive and stay in Portugal. Junot's objectives were murkier. He went into battle without a third of his army, and when repulsed, he sued for terms. Still, had Junot somehow managed to cripple the British, he would likely have been forced. They would have likely been forced to evacuate Portugal, and Junot might have gotten himself a marshal's baton out of that. I don't know. It's not a big battle. I doubt it. But if you think about the importance of this battle, it is quite high. It determined the control of Portugal 100%. Junot lost the battle, lost this little skirmish, but not heavily. He was just repulsed in his attack, and immediately sued to leave Portugal. Got terms to leave, with full honors or whatever. And the English, if they had been beaten here, they probably wouldn't. Their landing would have been a failure. It depends on the level of being beaten. The game continues until the French player wins an automatic victory, or a ceasefire is called, or until 6 p.m. when an automatic ceasefire occurs. Okay, if at any instant the French army has managed to destroy both the British train units as well as wreck the British army, 5 infantry, 4 if Wellesley's not in command, it wins an automatic victory. The British will call a ceasefire in order to negotiate their own evacuation, and Junot will be the general who threw the British out of the Iberian Peninsula. During the British command phase after the 12 p.m. turn, during any British command phase after 12, that Berard or his replacement is in command, the British player can call a ceasefire, provided that no close combat was fought in the preceding French player turn. The game ends immediately and victory points are counted to establish the victory. So, Junot has no say in the matter. He'll accept a ceasefire no matter what. Wow, that's kind of crazy. And the points are handed out here. Let's see. The British get points for wrecking the French. Permanently wrecking, they get double. If they ever can force the French headquarters to displace, they get a point. They get 2 points if they hold the French entry hex, thus kind of cutting them off a little bit. And the French get points for wrecking the infantry brigade, same with permanent. British trains are worth 2 points each. Vimiero Hill is worth a point. You think that's this because they say both hexes? It's not labeled, but that's okay. And if they have the landing within LOS, the only thing I can think of as the landing is the ocean up here. So if they've gotten close enough up there to the ocean that they can see it, an effective range of a French artillery, i.e. I guess it can have any impact, when the ceasefire is ordered, that's 2 points. You get a comparison, and basically you have to break. You have to have at least a 2-point advantage to get any kind of victory. The best French victory is basically that Junot gets more time, and an inconclusive draw can end up the same. The historical was this: a minor British victory. Junot surrenders but manages to negotiate safe transport. But you're not talking about, anything all that impressive in terms of the field battle that can translate to, Junot just leaves. The French goal here is the automatic victory. That's what they want to do, and that's the two wagons and 4 or 5 of the brigades wrecked. There's some variants in the game. I'll go over them briefly just for shits and giggles. Ones that convert, Berard starts the battle in charge or comes in later, giving points to the British or French respectively. Junot gets some extra troops as one of the options. The French can have a division enter an interior area B or C with an accepted order 1 turn later than it was supposed to arrive. This will give the British a victory point. This is B, where C is. I'm not going to use it, so it's really not that important. This is A, this is B. I'd expect C to be continuing in that same direction. I don't see a C. I don't see C. Yeah, so whatever. It wouldn't be the only mistake here. Junot wakes up. This will get rid of the initiative restrictions of 3.1, which is, I believe, a -1 to their command rating. And all French divisions can enter with previously accepted orders. This is worth 2 victory points. It's got its own random events table, which includes things like Junot wakes up. Includes some weird shit like Swiss units defecting from the French and causing a mixture of results. Like, the French lose some boxes, but it disrupts the British unit that, like, incorporates them, captures them, whatever it is. Some errata that I've got listed here, I assume I took this off the web or off of... This did not come out back when I was still getting these things. When you sent this out back in the day, you would get every Christmas a little bonus package, which included all the published errata so far on all their games from the gamers, and a bonus little counter sheet that included errata corrections, but also included other things that you could fix. And I was getting these, and I had a friend who had a couple of gamers games, and I don't know why he didn't send them in, but he wouldn't. He wanted me to give him my counters, and I'm like, I might end up wanting that game. And it's turned out I've gotten all of the games that that he wanted counters for. So I'm glad I was stingy with that. All right, that's enough words. And I don't know when I'm going to start playing. Right now in my life of addiction, I've got I'm kind of left at loose ends. I don't want to just burn resources like I've been burning them. I need to pull back from that. There's an event going on that I chose not to participate in, but there was something else that I was, really heavily burning resources to do that turned out I shouldn't have gone anywhere near as much as I did. But at least I took somebody else down with me. That they got the first place in it. So, but yeah, so I'm gonna probably be moving more towards being able to do more. I gotta go shopping at some point, or else starve to death. I don't know. That would be kind of cool. I lost about 8 pounds, which is a very good thing. I don't know if I'm going to keep it off, because quite often, I do, but I do lose weight. But it's been so infuriating that I'm eating so little and not losing weight. Now, I guess I'm eating less. I don't know. We're often started, I guess. It's kind of painful because, okay, the French troops come in. They've got no orders except to mill around the headquarters. So as you know, moves over to give orders next turn. Fine, You don't usually see this at the start of a game. Usually you're allowed to write your orders you want. For the English, the situation's pretty much the same. Hill has his little command with stupid orders that, because Wellesley was expecting the French to come from the south. But instead they're coming from the east, and he's got to react to that. And really, my choices are, well, go give a command to a brigade. I could actually move a brigade on its own. That's what I wasn't thinking about. I don't have to rely on these ad hoc divisions. Problem is the French can do obnoxious things. They could slip up here, and this is actually what I was thinking of writing orders for, and go maraud those wagons. If they take them out, there's a lot of victory points to begin with, but also that's a good step of the way towards the automatic victory. Sure, I still have to wreck 5 divisions, 5 brigades, 4 of them if you're talking about waiting until after, Berard comes in. I also have to look at the forces in play. So the L division, this first division that was coming in, I was going to send that up there to do that. But that's actually my best division. Other than that, everything else has a C in it, a C morale. It's not terrible, but I may just end up doing that. And in a sense, it means the Brits will either engage me or something else. So anyway, with Wellington, instead of just moving here, so one of the issues that I wanted to bring up, you got to find the right unit, because only 3 units can form a division. Hill is one of them. He's already over with his unit and has under his command Crawford, who's another one of the ones who can form the unit. Now I could rip Crawford outside of Hill. I don't know what that would do to Hill's orders, but I assume they would stay fine, And then the third one was harder to find, is this, what's his name? Ferguson. And it turned out he was right next to Wellington, which is kind of useful. So I think I'm going to shift Ferguson forward and try to give him give him orders next turn to take a command up in front of Vimiero and shield it, and then run back and get Crawford and or Hill operating. I don't really need both. It is really obnoxious to have to command things by walking up and moving them one at a time with your commander. I had a couple extra movement points with Wellesley, so I went and grabbed some cav and moved them, but not to where I wanted them. I want them, you know, maybe covering a little better. I don't know, cav is pretty shitty in these hills. But yeah, I think that's the end of turn one. Well, I'm going to celebrate by taking a break. Not much of fun. I see the view out to Springfield out there. And honestly, almost any time that I can pull away from a completely myopic view to anything, almost anything, if I'm not just stuck in my own head and my thoughts or doing something that just overwhelms everything, that the feeling is just overwhelming and painful, you know. And the reason is simply because, yeah, I would, you know, look out that view and my wife would be around, you know. There were times when I would take the pause and I'd make jokes about it and whatnot. Okay, to the game. But I'm just, it's like I can't do anything like that's at all. There are things, you know, I can play my game and I can chat with you on the video. I can engage in my addiction. I can shit, I can eat, I can, you know, do stuff like that. But almost anything that I can do where my brain is not fully engaged in the action I'm taking, even if it's something like washing dishes or something like that, it's just this overwhelming sadness and pain. And I don't know, maybe I've sort of short-circuited away from grief throughout these last couple of years, especially in the last few months. But it felt like it was just getting worse and worse, and I just couldn't face it any longer. Okay, to the game. Okay, so French wrote some orders to move up through Toledo and run up to Maquera and then come down and attack Vimiero from the north. Seems like a great idea. I always take these kind of over-ambitious attack orders because you don't want to get stuck somewhere where, like, well, I succeeded in all that, now I don't have nothing to do. Unless, you know, you reach a major goal. I'm not sure that Vimiero is a particularly important goal. There's no terrain goals in this game, which makes orders involved in capturing terrain to be really kind of questionable. But those are the orders that I don't know if it's worded that way in version 3.0. You know, when you're reading a new version, you assume that it's building off of the other stuff. So, you know, the memory is there, the body memory for playing these games is there in terms of, like, well, all the earlier CWB and NBS stuff convinced me that this is how, you know, this is how you write orders, is terrain objectives. There's less talking about orders in this set. Mainly, I think, because I'm looking to see. There used to be, well, no, they've got a significant amount here. And they do, how tight do geographic objectives of an order have? There's definitely the feeling that you should have geographic objectives to your orders, rather than chasing units. I've talked about this before. And it doesn't feel like it's always appropriate, right? Anyway, they do take some steps towards trying to define how you should write, you know, what your order should look like. But, you know, anyway. What I'd want to do in this is push the British generally back to Porto Novo, and writing terrain orders doesn't necessarily accomplish that. But on the other hand, I don't think you can really write orders that say push them back in this direction. You don't know which way they're going to go. I do think you should be allowed to write orders that say pursue. And that doesn't seem supported ever. But what I wrote here, I got a nasty D6, which is a pain because now my troops are beginning to clog up here. I was thinking about building a delay in terms of, not in terms of accepting the order, but in terms of actually engaging, since there's no foot dragging in this one. The foot dragging was problematic, let's be honest. You could work your way around it. Okay, for the English, Wellington threw off, well, he's not Wellington yet. Wellesley threw off orders to Ferguson to take command of units here, but he got a nasty distorted. I'm not allowed to write orders for him, though, until that distorted gets cleared up. This is something that got added to the system at some point or another. I don't remember where, but when orders get distorted, you have to make a die roll each turn to see if you're aware they got distorted. Now, I was standing right there. Oh, maybe I am aware, because I was standing right there. No. No, so the guy who was standing right there was just nodding his head, but he had spent too much time in India, and I did not realize that he was saying no when it looked like he was saying yeah. Actually, Wellington's the one, or Wellesley's the one who spent too much time in India. Ferguson might have too, but. So Wellesley's on his way to go talk to Hill, get another large force, or he's sitting on top of Crawford. He couldn't get far enough. He had to move the cav. He had to step on his headquarters, and he had to run over. He just couldn't get far enough. But I want to get these forces moving forward as well. This was sort of a, hey, let's just throw a stopgap in there. Well, I more or less have that by having moved a unit forward. So I'm in good enough shape, I think, there. But yeah, neither person's getting any orders. They may never end up fighting. I mean, remember, the game can kind of end starting at like noon. Call for a ceasefire, and there was no firing. Not much changed in the second turn. New orders for what's the Labrador, and I want him going through Vimiero, up through Macara, and up to Porto Novo. Again, highly, highly ambitious, but you know, if the way's open, fuck it. That'll get me a view going down to the landing area, I guess. There's nothing that indicates where the landing area actually is, but that's the ocean, so I'm assuming that's it. What else do we have? We also have, oh no, the landing site is here. So yeah, Porto Novo would definitely be in view of that, getting into that general area on the hill. This is the landing site. This hex. Interesting. Something else that I noticed that's kind of useful, there's little notes on the turn record track telling you the special times. So like the ceasefire can start here, you roll for Baranda. I've got them marked in these locations when French reinforcements come, but that's kind of helpful. I got no question about that. For the English side, distortion wasn't detected. I decided to just move forward and talk to Hill himself, have him move his whole command. I don't know where to put it though. Like from a role-playing perspective, I feel like I should swing it down south of Vimiero because that's what he was worried about. But I think I'm aware that the French are coming in here at this point. Certainly I am. And the threat to the south is less, even though I haven't given any real orders to protect in that direction, and that would be a real good trick. But covering the two wagons is incredibly important, so I think I want to fling them kind of in front of Macara on that hill. But it does feel like I've created kind of a gap. I may end up dispatching Crawford down to the south to help protect that as well. But yeah, that's becoming a fucking traffic jam. And with D6s, I mean, it can take a long fucking time for D6s to take effect. This game could be at ceasefire level before that. Now, what happens if it is? What are the points like again? Nothing would be damaged. I would be holding entry area A now. So yeah, the Brits really kind of have to get some positive points to get more than an inconclusive result, which is good. You wouldn't want them to win the battle simply by saying, yes, let's not have this battle. Although the results there, Juno would withdraw to Lisbon and would be pursued, but which sounds strategically almost as bad. It's like, why the fuck? But Juno does have another third of his troops sitting back near Lisbon. So his army would be larger. He'd be strategically on the defensive. It's why I don't understand the whole, why the fuck would he abandon things? This looks like a fairly short game. Like, it would just play out pretty quickly. I think it was kind of a throw-in. The Talavera is a bigger scenario. But I don't want to focus all of my time on it. And I don't know. I also don't really have the concentration to just play through. So, although I've only done, a couple of turns, I still want to take it easy. We're going to get to play. One French division started moving. The other one, with a supporting role for it, it's sort of a mixed support role. Got a D4, so that's going to be coming around and attacking more from the south. And in addition, Hill just automatically accepted his orders. However, I still don't know about that distortion. That hasn't been accepted. But they have defend in place orders on the brigade level, so it's not as bad as it might be. The artillery is kicking around somewhere here. Where did there it is. It looks different than I'm used to the graphics being for these guys. It's going to take a long time to get where it's going, which is problematic. And actually, what I'd like to do, what I really should have done was separated Crawford, sent him down. I picked up some of these guys and moved them to here. They were shaken by crossing a stream, and then moved Wellesley up. He's got to go back to his headquarters if he wants to write orders, but he can move units around. So there's kind of this weird, do I step on headquarters or not? Am I better off, ferrying these guys further? They moved as fast as they could, but I could have grabbed this and moved it forward a little bit. It's hard to make your judgments. He's got to run around and do things individually. Only up here because raid is broken right now, so but it probably is fixed at this point. My speed, I thought I was giving orders to a 3rd Infantry Division. I was not. There are only 2 infantry divisions in this game for the French. So I'm going to modify those orders that I gave to the M Division to merely be support orders. They should not be trying to follow their own attack through Vimiero. They're Cav. Dragoons officially, but there's no, they're not, I don't recall Dragoons being used that way in the Napoleonic War. I think Dragoons are really purely mounted units in this period. Unlike the very nearby, era of the American Revolution, where Dragoons actually did dismount some of the times. I think that was just not something that they were used for in this period. I could be wrong. And we're both getting within range here. The Cav accepted its orders and followed its way forward. The reason I noticed was I looked at Kellerman, and I know he's Cav. But then I remembered, wait, there's 2 different Cav divisions in this game. Kellerman has the tiny one. I'm assigning him to go support that other unit. the L division here. This thing, this thing can move on its own. 1, 2, 3, I don't know. 2-level horse is fine. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 probably. Fine. Whatever. For the English, still not understanding that distorted order exists, and we've got Hill's command moving its way up the hill, and the artillery trickling along behind. It's kind of weird because the limiting factor to the artillery is number of hexes, really. Right? Is that what it... No more than 3 hexes in a turn. But that can be as steep as you like. It kind of makes sense. In the really, really bad steep terrain, the artillery is being hand-hauled anyway, right? Whereas on the roads and on clear terrain is where the horses give it the most advantage. And there are no horses, so. Great. I stopped just outside of artillery range. I don't want to give them a free opportunity shot, even if it is unlikely to do much. One thing that I noticed, I started setting up the next game. Yeah, well, the new Europa Universalis, based on the video game rather than on the original. But, you know, the lineage is there still. And oh my God, I was hoping I could squeeze it in on that table down there, because that's a wider table than this one. It's not gonna, it almost fits, but I think I'm gonna have to use a couple table extenders and set it up here, which gives me a little bit more reason to have to finish this, although I'm going along at a better clip with this, and it could end. I mean, it's not going to end here because the Brits aren't going to be enough ahead to call a truce, but it could end as early as 12:30 if the Brits have any advantage in terms of victory points. We have to get it up to +2, which means we wreck a couple of these French units, right? Or without losing anything. But, you know, if the French are able to gain any ground here and smack some of these units around, they may actually have the advantage on the field. So, yeah. And next turn, we have the chance of Barral, whatever his name is. What is it here? Berard, showing up. And that, of course, is not going to be as good as Wellington here. Who's listed as Wellington, right? Not Wellesley? No, he's as Wellesley. Okay. Which is good, because he was not the Duke yet. It's kind of interesting. He's one of the counters and the army counter that are used in both games. It's kind of annoying. And then they failed to produce enough artillery pieces for this scenario, so I had to dig out one of them, I think this one, that says British on it, that's different from these which say Army of Portugal on them. how you know, like I said, I have a little bit of errata here. Entry C. Oh, C is 0600. That was what was in the record. I'm guessing they mean 6.00, which unfortunately isn't even on the board. So I don't know if that's possible. There is no 0600. There is a 1600. But anyway, I don't think anything uses entry C in the game, although maybe the optional units come in from there. Hill sets up in command of a temporary division. That kind of is actually stated But it does say, that probably refers to a rule where it says all three are off map at the beginning, which is just wrong. One of British artillery is missing, and British brigades can perform emergency retreats. Okay, but does anything spark it, or is it just by player order? These are probably the notes that I picked up directly, and again, they were online only. Now, I grabbed these probably from WebGrog Nerds because I bought Talavera, I don't think too long after it was produced. Let's see what year. Well, we got 2005 on here. I probably picked it up in 2008. So it had time to, stew in its juices as a system and whatever. Okay. Turns out it's Thursday and I missed a day somewhere. Well, no, not anymore. It's Friday morning. Well, around 4 in the morning at this point. But I missed a day. Like, I just lost it. And not in terms of I lived it, I did things and everything. I just lost track of time entirely, which, and even after I found that out, I still spent a day away from the game during that. Doing my addiction, whatever. So I've got kind of a difficult situation here, right? The French are approaching to attack. I've got a cav unit here, part of MCAV, the part that was attached to this command, I guess. I don't know. It was on the board early. I could send that in, I think. Let's see. This space, these have 3. Is that problematic? Yeah, 3 slope is no good. Good luck finding a place you can use the cav then. Yeah, so I can run down here 1, 2, I guess cross the stream, hop. That's not going to do shit. So I kind of see why they say, well, you're not going to be able to use the cav near Vimiero. Yeah, but there's basically nowhere on the fucking board you can use this cav. So I'm going to just have to approach with the infantry and fight. I mean, the cav was present, but this is just ridiculous. There's some areas down here, I guess, if the fight wanders into that stream valley. And there's some areas where the hills are a little bit less steep. But yeah, that cav is not going to do me any good under the orders it has. That was an obscene result. The English had their best unit on the board there, the Fane light infantry, or Fane's light infantry. I don't know what the actual unit is. I think it's just listed as the Fane, after the commander. A quality unit should never break on defense, but I was out skirmished. And so there was a 1 in 6 chance of it failing. It failed its defensive roll. And so the French were attacking from up above, so they had to check first. The French were actually unable to fail their roll. Now they did have to face the artillery, but they broke the unit. They did a wreckage, not quite a wreckage on it. But they sent it routing, and they captured both guns, which isn't that likely. Usually, when I get the gun points lost, quite often, half the time, well, no, not half the time, is it? Yeah, half the time, nothing's lost. So losing both guns is a big deal as well. And I think that's the end of the French turn. The French were shaken by the artillery fire, and they took a casualty as well. There aren't going to be a hell of a lot of casualties in this battle, right? It's not a big battle. So, when they happen, I guess I'll call them out. But, yeah, the French attack was far more successful than one would think, considering what the units involved were. And Wellesley moves some infantry into place in Vimiero. It's crappy stuff, but crappy stuff can defend a town just fine. And runs back to rally these guys. It's such a pain, this shifting people back and forth. I'm just kind of doing it on guesswork. I'm sure I could do what I did, but in some cases, the counting and everything is just obnoxious. I tried at first to put them up here, and then I realized, wait, Hill's going up there. That distorted order still didn't go anywhere. I don't have to make any kind of check on this this thing's got the distorted order. Yeah, it can defend all day there. Does it have any orders? Yeah, they have the automatic defend in place orders that the Brits just have in this scenario, which is what everything would have had in the old version too. The fact that I'm not getting a hell of a lot of this played is okay. The thing that troubles me is I'm not reading any of my rules. I'm just like watching videos and playing my raid. And, you know, I mean, I could read while I'm playing. It's not a game that requires a lot of attention, but I have to keep up with all the, you know, all the news videos and all the other things that show up in my feed that I want to see. And I don't know, it's just what I'm used to doing, and it sucks, man. So, but I wanted to get something done under the auspice of, you know, what is kind of Thursday, even if it's not. I mean, I was playing Thursday morning, right? So, this game is relatively small, and the pieces are full-sized, so I think I can squeeze this in. I've got 3 attacks coming. I think I can get a full turn in, both sides, in about a half hour. It's not a beautiful day I'm missing, but chilly. By which I mean, you know, it's like in the mid-40s or something, I think. It's about where the days end up. But basically, I'm awake for, you know, I just woke up, and I have like a half hour until I have to play my addiction. And it's actually kind of important that I get it in right from the beginning today, because then I go dancing when I get home at night. I try to finish off the day, but sometimes I end up missing shit because of the dancing. You really kind of have to be available almost all the time. Like, if you sleep for 8 hours, yeah, that kind of hurts you a little bit. But having like 2 of those or more in a day, two or more periods where you're away from the computer. Now, you can be away for 4 or 6 hours. That's no problem. It's when you hit about 8 hours that it gets troublesome. Anyway, launching a bunch of attacks all along the front. Normally, this would be very, very painful. Well, it would be very painful to see, you know, a massive attack. But in this game, a massive attack is basically one division against one division kind of situation. Through the cav over here, I think they can charge through most of this shit. Some of what I attacked across the stream here into cav. Now, this is horrible. The cav was in such a stupid location. They couldn't countercharge. And what that meant is that they just got chased back. Just awful, awful setup. But and certainly the cav should not have been on the line like that to begin with. But it also, if it had been back here, it would have looked more like cav, and I wouldn't have walked right into it thinking it was an infantry formation. But it also wouldn't have been in a ridiculous position. So does that mean I want to go in here? Well, I have a shaken, and as a B, I don't think it's a good idea. However, the problem is I will be forever shaken. Because I came from, I don't know where, I think this hex. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for direction. I could not anyway. Okay. Okay, and so the net result is French didn't fight here. They were victorious here, came in from higher ground. The Brits actually had a fair chance of breaking. It was like a 50-50. It wasn't a great unit. Then up here, it was a good unit, and the French were coming from, I believe, lower ground. It's so fucking hard to tell. Yeah, because there's a little bit of yellow on this one, so it's higher than that. If I'm following the rules, and I'm having more trouble with like not explicitly following the rules and trying to figure out my little fudge. So I'm just like slavishly following the rules instead of trying to make some kind of reasoning in there. I started getting into trouble with the reasoning today. So, you know, mixed results. I've broken 2 British brigades. Oh no, just one. Oops. I did not break that other one. Okay, I broke the 1 brigade that I hit this time. But on the other hand, the French 2/4 light was broken as well. So, and that's this guy back here. He was routed. He's now disordered, but because he recovered. Decent morale. Better at the actual mechanics or mechanisms of handling the close combat sequence. I'm still struggling with the approach, though. As you can see, not knowing the cav was there, etc. Counting, you know, the movement points for each hex, shit like that is all kind of high when you start getting into engagement range, as opposed to just moving on the field. But the system is getting lighter with repeated plays as I get used to that. Of course, I'm on the second to last battle in the series that I'm... Of everything in the series, actually. And Burrar or whatever doesn't come in. Wellington finally realizes that whoever I put in charge here, F dude, he's one of the guys I hit. I think the one that got whacked here. Ferguson or something like that, yeah. Isn't planning on applying his orders. That's okay, they were pretty much defend orders where he was, and where he was is now held by the French. But now comes the painful part. Moving Wellington around and doing shit with him. It is really, yeah, you know, each step backwards in terms of command capabilities in this series and in the CWB series is a pain in the ass. So I'm used to the normal sort of functioning corps operations. The game is designed for that. Corps of divisions, you give orders to the corps, and, you know, there may be a few little edge cases where you can move units around and whatnot, but for the most part, that's what you do. You just you give orders at the corps level, and that whole corps follows it, and it just operates as needed to move. Well, in some of the CWB games, like it's got to be kind of close to the beginning here. The 3 battles of Manassas, 2 of those are games in which at least one of the sides. So in the first battle, in that one, neither side has corps formation. So you're giving orders at the divisional level, which is having to write tons and tons of little orders. And we had that in, whatever we just played, Espinosa, of this series as well. And then the second one in that box, just the Confederates don't have a proper corps structure. That's obnoxious, but this is just so much worse. This is like fucking annoying. You're giving orders not on the brigade level, but on some sort of ad hoc level where you have to spell that all out. But then this idea of like the commander walking around and just moving troops individually to where they need to go. Wow, is that painful. Especially the case because, well, the complexity of the movement points per hex in this game, of counting them and everything like that, and or just recognizing, maybe at some point, because I'm getting a little better again, but also that the leader, Wellesley in this case, and the units each have their own movement point allowances. So you have to keep track of multiple movement allowances at once. So like when I went and moved, okay, I can attach the skirmishers and they can move along with the infantry. So that's an issue I don't have to deal with, but they technically have their own movement allowance and I could be moving them separately as well. It doesn't make sense because it's slower, although they pay less costs. So you could balance it out and end up with the skirmishers a hex ahead sometimes. But only in bad terrain. If you're in good terrain, you really want them moving along with the formed unit and then breaking out on another turn. But you move the unit itself. You have to count where the unit might be able to make it to. You assess how many points that costs Wellesley and whether he has that many available, and you move the two together to there, and then like the artillery behind has to follow in the same path, but it only has a very limited amount of movement points in it. It's just such a fucking hassle. I'm glad this is a tiny battle. That's all I have to say. I would not want to play this system with the movement orders, etc. that it has. However, I think it actually shows something that I didn't feel like Battles of the Age of Reason showed, but it's been so fucking long since I had my one misguided play of a game in that series. And of course, had bought the whole series up to that point, which is a very static sort of positioning where units really didn't go marching forward in mass or whatever. The lines could move forward, but you really had to move them slowly and whatnot. And it wasn't like you were moving units by corps or anything like that. So, yeah, it did not give that feel. This doesn't really give that feel, but if you want to reposition a unit, the idea that like Wellesley has to go and individually move the unit, or has to kind of create a command. I guess if I've got the created commands, it's not that different from divisions, except of course they're not in the same they're not in the same. They're harder to find, right? You have to look by individual name. So guess what's going on in BAR probably isn't too different from this in a lot of ways. But it's just such a fucking annoyance. Because, yeah, I had more to say, but I'm barely awake. Right, so Hill descends the hill a step. He's under actual orders, and again, I feel like actual defend orders in this apparently allow you some range of movement. That may actually be implied in the rules in a way that it wasn't in the old rules. I'll have to take a peek at that. Coming down from higher ground gave me the advantage, and the French unit, although a good unit, was shaken already. So it ended up succeeding in its morale check, and the English also succeeded. It went to a firefight, but in the firefight, the French got a really bad result and ended up routing over to there. The English recovering, even with their shitty morale. This is not, the crack, thin red line type force. It's decent. It's mainly B morale, but there's some crap in here. Now these are, I think, Portuguese, but there's a couple of C's up here. I don't think we'll see that over in Talavera. But they're largely untested forces. And I forgot to move my artillery, which is still under orders and can move. 1, 2, 3. That one could not, because it doesn't have Wellesley to help push it. All right, and that's it for today, because I know I always run up against the limit playing raid, trying to get ready to go out. All right, here at the 11:30 turn, the French pull back a little bit in order to reorganize, bring some of their forces up. They also bring their artillery up and unlimber that to help take control there. English side Berard did not come in, so Wellesley is still in command. He shifted some forces, I don't know who. My eyes are starting to really, like, I'm not finding it easy to read the units on these either. At least with the English units. That I can kind of tell, but like something like this, I don't know if it's the particular font choice or something. I can zoom in and see it, or I can take it over to the light over there and, you know, try to look. But at least for the English units, I'm having a really hard time telling who's what. And I'm beginning to think that I may be actually at the end of my wargaming period, because if I can't read the counters anymore, you know, the alternative is magnifying glass or throwing my reading glasses on top of these guys or whatever. I have a newer prescription that's slightly better for this, so maybe I'll try that. But why am I wearing my old prescription? Well, that's a good question. Anyway, so one English unit moved up close enough that it will be able to close combat. I didn't want to launch it this turn, although actually I probably had the movement to do so, in part because there's an artillery piece there, which is problematic. And also I went and sent Wellesley up here to give orders to Ferguson to get him a new command again. He's the guy who ignored his last command. I want him launching an attack, and then I'm going to go to Hill and launch an attack. Because right now, there's one French division up there. That ain't enough, you know. If the English move against them, they should be able to drive it back. But on its own, it can hit selected sections of the English line. It's also a little weakened right now. Now, in terms of my capability of playing, this is a Saturday. Well, actually, it's a Sunday morning, but I've been, you know, I slept most of the day and been playing raid most of the night, or all of the night, and reading rolls. And you know, I'm just never in great shape. It's very fatiguing. It's fine. The fact that I'm reading the rules is to the next game is more important than getting this covered. Okay, long delay without playing. Got some of a good part of the rules done on the EU thing. Oh God, they're horrible. You'll see. But they are what I predicted would never be possible, and they're not possible. But anyway, I did go shopping on Sunday. It's Monday night. I jumped quite a bit here. A lot of time online playing raid, but also last night I got drawn into something else and installed some shit and couldn't get it to work right and said screw it and uninstalled it all. So something that I wanted to tinker with in Python actually, but I don't want to anymore. All right, so on the French turn, nothing really changed except I got a random event that delayed this reinforcement, so I didn't get to roll for it. That's what I had to roll for, if I recall correctly. I can't remember shit. And kind of reforming my unit preparing for another attack or whatever. Nothing else really changed. And that puts me over to the Brits, who are going to try to launch an attack, I believe. Is that what I got here? Move to hill north of Vimiero to... Yeah, well, somehow I seem to remember Wellington's trying to gather up something to launch an attack. Because if we don't push the French back, we're not going to get enough victory points to get, you know, the historical result. And yes, we control when the game ends. In fact, I think we could just end it if we wanted. A pretty decent D4 on that order. In fact, I can't call the ceasefire until this upcoming turn, which I don't know how much I'm going to be up and down. Raid is really annoying right now. I'm doing dungeon crawls that are, you know, about the length of time of a half turn or whatever, so maybe a little less. So it's not worth spending resources to do it automatically. Let's see. Oh, there's these light dragoons. What the fuck's up with them? Let's move these as well. Oh, that's like maybe 2 movement points. I don't know. I gotta fucking look it up every goddamn time because... no, it's just 1. And then I'm in position. I can take the road 2, and then I can cross the river, and I'll be disordered, but I'll recover that. French artillery isn't doing much. It's a 4-point gun, but it's failing to have any impact. Skirmishers, that unlike with the Spaniards, the British have good skirmishers, so they're able to match the French there. Trying to remember what the hell I'm doing. I know that I'm really annoyed by having to move Wellesley around to shift units. So like he shifted a couple, Ferguson and the gun forward so that they'll be more ready when that D4 fires off. But then move back here. Now, oh, I know what it is. I know what I'm remembering. But now he has to, you know, before he gives another order, he has to step on this, and I got to remember all that shit. And it's just, it would be easy if instead of this on the back that doesn't really serve any purpose, you wouldn't keep it on the board in that condition, right? For this particular game, they had a, or for actually any in the series for Corps commanders, but most Corps commanders have a replacement on the back. They had kind of a, hasn't stepped on the headquarters, you know, situation. Certainly for the Army commander, it's important because the Army commander actually writes the orders. And the Army commander never has a replacement on the back because they're being, well, maybe in one. But they're being replaced by one of their subordinates who's already in command. But here's where the problem came. The British regular units, I don't know what their order status is, and that's important for order acceptance. Are they in no orders or are they in general orders? I'm going with general orders because the way it's worded here, I don't know where it says. Yeah, they're on automatic defend-in-place orders and may not move at all except move 1 hex into close combat. Don't think those brigades are ever in no order status, but on the other hand, the division doesn't exist yet. And is it in no order status? It could fall into no order status conceivably. I think Hill was in that position at one point. It's just, you know, they made up this completely new command structure for this particular scenario, and I don't think they fully fleshed it out. You know, I think there's plenty of room for interpretation, and yeah, I'm fine with that. But it's just another thing to gripe about, right? Okay, the French 1230 turn was not a good one. I launched attacks, one coming from the artillery here. The artillery again failed to do anything, and equal terrain, because again, I'm using the rules as written now instead of trying to say, well, they had to dip down the hill and go up. And it makes sense. If we look at the next fight, I'll explain why. But, you know, although clearly these guys could be on a higher terrain. Actually, no, I was on a higher terrain. And I lost my morale check immediately. C morale unit with a leader, but I was outnumbered. I didn't realize how much of a beating some of Delibera's force had taken. So this was like the 86th line, which wasn't that big to begin with. And it was facing basically a double A, which is nasty. And so that's like a -1 for the size differential and whatnot. So they routed away. Okay, fine. A lot of pain there. The unit's basically probably not got a chance to recover in the course of the game. And then the other unit moved here. This guy was shaken already, so I didn't want to throw him in against anything. Although, honestly, crossing the stream, he would have just been shaken anyway. So he probably could have been thrown in. Unfortunately, that second unit was a real mistake. It was an already wrecked unit. I'm kind of an idiot, but I didn't want to undo the stuff and everything. That crossing the stream, it was larger, so the Brits had to make the first morale check, but its chances were very low. But once the Brits succeeded, and they had a fairly good chance, I don't know, like a 2 or maybe a 3, I don't know. They were a B, right? And they were not, they were small. So anyway, the Brits held their morale because of why I said 3, because I think they had the size disadvantage there. The French get knocked back and badly demolished. This division is now wrecked. It's the only one under orders. The other infantry division, the only other thing that can, conceivably win the battle, is still in that D6 state, which, like I said, they may never take those orders up. So the French have basically been defeated already. And I guess that's about it there. On the other hand, I'm drinking coffee now. It's fucking, like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, something like that. Why are you drinking coffee? Well, because I never get to anymore. I get up, and by the time I'm done, by the time I'm like ready to kind of play a game or something, it's already dark out, and I don't want to, I just don't want to do it at that hour of the night. But tonight I decided to, because when I went shopping on Sunday, I found a London broil, which, it's not a great cut of meat, but I like them. I like them a lot. A little oil and salt on them, and they're tender enough for me. I like some texture to my meat. $2 a pound, absolutely fresh. I was worried it was going to be, near its expiration date or something. No, it's just beautiful meat. And a fucking huge piece. Like 7 pounds of steak. I didn't eat it all. I ate a small piece of it with some eggs. And that was breakfasty enough, like, even if it's, after gaming breakfasty, that I really wanted coffee. It reminded me of other times in my life. And I'm glad I did, because both I enjoyed the taste of the meat so much, and I have the coffee. I'm going to do the British turn too. We'll see what happens with them. The French unit did not come in. It only comes in on a one roll in 6. So again, the French are in a lot of trouble right now. Okay, and things happen. Berard takes over. Wellesley goes off to pout. And we look at the Berard rolls because they're a little funky. Roll 1 die on a 1 or 2. He comes in, takes command at the headquarters, which could be an obnoxious position if Wellesley is chasing. When this happens, Wellesley is removed and any orders in transit are canceled, and any temporary divisions in existence suffers an automatic stoppage. All right. We got a case that doesn't fit either of those, and again, they didn't write the rules carefully enough, which is not uncommon in the scenarios for the Gamer Series stuff. However, I'm assuming Who designed this? Anders Fager and Stefan Ekstrom. I think they are the people in charge of this. Well, no, Elias Nordling is the other one. So maybe Ekstrom was kind of in charge. But I think they're the same ones who played around with the Musket and Pike series. At least one of the people involved here. Actually, I think it's Nordling, but it may be Nordling and Fagan. I recognize, of course, Nordling is not an uncommon name, but I think so. Neither is Berg, right? But wargaming is an uncommon hobby and certainly profession when you come to designing. But anyway, they did a similar type of situation, if this is the pair, with the musket and pike stuff. Not really changing the core rules, but creating more and more terrain impacts in the scenarios that they devised, which made the games unmanageable to me, which is kind of the feeling I have with these. But here they went further. They went with a rules set that damn near makes it unmanageable as well. It's not so bad on the old style terrain. Okay, so I think the intention is that all orders end up canceled. So this thing is under orders. It is going to get a withdrawal, I guess. This thing, I think, has not yet accepted the orders, so I'm going to treat it as if it's in transit and just cancel the order. But these other units take an emergency withdrawal. So the English army is going to flee after their successful defense. We have a mess where Hill's little temporary division fell apart and ran away. Took a little bit of stragglers, but not too bad. Burrard moved forward with whoever the hell this is. Fuck it. I should get this gun somewhere. It's not under anybody's command. Okay, great. This gun unlimbered because I don't know what the hell. It's part of that command. It probably was supposed to run away. So 1, 2, and that's looks like 3 levels. That's got to be expensive. 3, 4, 5. Basically, after turning directions and whatnot, it's almost impossible to move. But yeah, so they're fleeing too. Again, it's hard to tell, It would take a lot of words to explain all possible meanings that might arise from this situation. Burrard's going back to go talk to whoever the hell, Ferguson, and convince him, no, really, what Wellesley told you was good. Do it. But Burrard's a 0 commander, okay? He's not likely to get anything going. This battle is almost a joke. It really is. It's kind of a throw-in. They call it Talavera and Vimiero, but if you look at the box, it just says Talavera on it. Because this could have been one of their print and plays, as far as I'm concerned. It really doesn't add a hell of a lot. I'm glad they threw an extra game in. That's cool and all. And it's kind of a neat situation that all kind of really random stuff could happen in, but yeah, it's so likely to turn out to be really inconclusive because of all the special rules in it to handle, the fact that basically the leadership on both sides sucked. The British Army wasn't prepared to operate, really. It wasn't as well trained in terms of accepting commands, etc. It was, as they put it, an 18th century army. I think that's what they meant. I think they said 17th century, but I am assuming that's a mistake. I don't know. I think I looked before too, where it talked about the orders. It's got to be in the game notes. 17th century will lead to an army in the 17th century style. I think they mean 18th. I don't know for sure though, because the English army hadn't really fought in any European major engagements much. Yeah, I don't know. They did during Frederick's War. I'm remembering Cumberland shows up and leads forces over there. So I highly doubt that they're still using 17th century tactics, which honestly are musket and pike era, which don't even really make sense. So I'm assuming that's a typo. And, you know, I mean, they went through the American Revolution and actually learned quite a bit. That's why you have skirmishers out, etc. So I would actually say relatively late 18th century, which isn't too far from early 19th century, right? Okay. But yeah, this scenario is just so kind of whacked. You know, the fact that you've got 2 French commands and at most 3 functional British commands, sort of, means that it's really, you know, it's really possible for like half your army to be stuck on a D6, and there's not really a damn thing you can do about it. You could cheat. I consider it cheating for me to write some other set of orders. There's really only one thing to do here. So anything else that I wrote for orders, I mean, maybe I could send them up around here or something. And that would be functionally different enough that I could say it's not cheating, but the intention is really just to get around that damn D6, the same way that you're trying to get around a distorted. Used to be distorted orders were actually better than a D6, because a D6 was just like, well, great, you know, it could take me half a day or longer to actually, you know, accept my orders. A distorted, it's like, fine, I got to go back and I got to talk to him again after I touch base and, you know, have my cup of tea before I go back and yell at him some more. All right. Yeah, I'm talking a lot more than playing, but that's okay. I've been bothered by something in this game, and I think maybe I've been misplaying it. Artillery, and this is an artillery unit facing this vertex here, and can only shoot out these hexes, right? I've just assumed from other games that I've read, etc., and because never in these rules does it really explicitly call it out, although I think it does a good enough job that if I was reading the rules without any prior experience, I wouldn't feel this way. That artillery have to limber in order to change facing. In particular, I look here, okay, so one of the questions is facing movement? Well, it's a different section, okay? Now, facing itself actually says, during movement, but movement is also a segment of the game, I believe. There's the movement phase, so they may mean during the movement phase, not during movement, which implies that you need to be able to move. During movement, units may pay 1 movement point to change facing from one corner to an adjacent. Any unit, any type or formation can rotate 180 degrees at a cost of 1 movement point. I didn't realize it was that extreme. I've been overcharging, as you saw with some of the infantry here. They might have been able to run away a hex further. Facing can be changed at will at the end of any required retreat. Yeah, I knew that. Units with all around facing, yeah. Okay. So, I'm beginning to think that artillery does not have to limber and unlimber in order to change facing. Something that is kind of important, because if you look at the movement chart, and I think I've been misplaying this in all of Dean's games, probably because of GBACW, where if there is any kind of hand hauling type rules, it's really explicitly called out. But here, if you look, artillery has 6 movement points, 3 of them for a formation change, and then if I want to do a facing change, which actually is not spelled out on here at all, it's down here though. But again, I think this is separate from the movement in a certain way, just because of the way this is spelled out, or I think it's intended to be. This allows for a hand hauling so that I can do what I really want to do, which is shift this artillery here. Now, it's not going to get to fire right now, but I'm going to move infantry up to protect it. And why weren't the British attacking it? I guess they were stupid. I was so overwhelmed by the retreat and the command change and everything that no attack was launched. Given how shitty the French attacks were, in terms of like I shouldn't have done them, I'm leaving this as is. But yeah, I think that I'm allowed to hand haul the guns without there being any explicit rules dealing with that. Now, I'm used to explicit rules to deal with that, you know, artillery that's that's unlimbered is able to change facing 1 hex or something like that being called out specifically. Here, I think I've got my 6 movement points that are listed there. And then if I look here, restrictions on movement, unlimbered batteries cannot move, but can expend movement points to change formation or facing. It's right there. All right, so I've just been ignoring that this whole time, and that has caused some definite issues when the artillery's close in the line. It's not a hugely common facet, because usually I've got the guns a couple hexes back, but here they've ended up right on the line, which is important for this scenario. And I caught it in time in this scenario that it didn't make a hell of a lot of difference, especially since the Brits didn't attack. Of course, they would have faced grape if they had. But then they would have chased the guns out if they... and they almost certainly would have withstood the grape shot. It would be at worst, let's see, 4, well, no, there's a couple morale -2s there, and they'd be rolling 2 dice, so there's a fair chance that they would fail to even make it in, because there's enough guns there. But anyway, I just wanted to call that out in case you've been watching any of these previously and maybe wondered about it, or maybe I've expressed some angst about it, because it's been bugging the shit out of me every time I see it. I'm like, wow, I really wish I could turn my gun, but it's not horse artillery, and somehow or another horse artillery is able to, like, you know, move. Nah. And I think GBACW has like a specific rule called out on it. This does too, and I just missed it, and I'm sure that goes all the way through the series, and I've just not been able to absorb that. What the hell am I doing? Moving the French, yes. And nothing whatsoever came of that. I've got the skirmishers there, so that they're now screening. I actually have enough that I can do skirmisher fire as well, which might be of some value. The British skirmishers being equal to the French mean I don't get any skirmisher fire when I'm facing them, unlike in most of the other games in the series where the French skirmishers are twice as strong, therefore they get some fire combat. And that skirmisher fire comes to some effect. I wrote some orders for Ferguson again. Now he's down from a D4 to a D5 with basically the same orders. He's not in as much of a hurry as he was for Wellesley. And Burrard shifted some forces around, but he's got to step here before he goes and talks to Hill to give him orders and give him a command as well. And then I may set things up so that I can give a command to Crawford too. I've been including Crawford in Hill. I may not want to do that, although one of the problems is Crawford's unit is in good shape. The rest of the commands are a little beaten up. Wonder if there's anybody who could have recovered. Not who didn't move. Okay. Well, yeah, they expended movement points to change facing, at the very least. They can't move forward without Berard's help, but I didn't want my troops facing backwards. What a mess. Anyway, we'll go into the 130. I will continue playing some Raid because I've got to get, I don't know. It's just being a pain. But also, one thing that I can do is I can read rules while I'm playing it. I end up just fucking watching YouTube all day. My news addiction and whatnot. But I'm getting close to the end of it. Weekends are better for news because there isn't as much that I want to watch. But then I get hooked up. So like I'm been listening to this series on the 80 Years' War, which is intriguing to me. But it's, 16 hours or something. And as to coffee, well, I noted something. It's kind of depressing. I'm down to, I drink a half pot because I can't afford physically to drink much more than that anymore. But it's so depressing because just about the time that I'm, beginning to enjoy the coffee fully, like I like the taste, the first sip of coffee or whatever. But then I get into this sort of mood with coffee. And a pot used to be just about perfect. And not really, because I could easily drink a second pot or whatever. But somewhere around halfway through a pot, I start really getting back to a certain enjoyment of the coffee that's different. It's just of a different nature than, the first couple sips are bliss, then the rest of it, until I'm like on at least into my second cup, is kind of it's kind of like it just goes fast, and I'm like, whoa. And by the time I'm like at about this point, I'm like, wow, I'm really beginning to enjoy the coffee again. And well, it's almost done now. Okay, the 130 turn was exciting, actually. For the French, not a whole hell of a lot. The artillery fired, did some damage, but otherwise, nothing really happened. On the English side, though, not even a rally, nothing. On the English side, though, things are getting interesting. Oh, I gotta do some recovery attempts. So I moved this infantry forward because Ferguson has his orders now. Got really lucky, supposedly. Moved up near the artillery piece to attack it from the flank, but there was some cav here. It charged, capable of charging. It was, I hope, only a 2-level hex. Infantry formed into square. Cav blown and thrown back. Okay, great. No losses, nothing. The infantry that was up here, though, marched in with Ferguson in charge, took a face full of grape, and was just smashed. Wrecked Bose's unit, which is a big deal because now we're at 3 out of 4. We'll get to that in a moment. Routed the command. I've got another brigade in there, but they didn't take any hits and failed. And then I don't want to send another unit in or anything like that, or even close, because it'll be set up for the artillery to beat up on it another turn. But these guys set up their artillery, and we'll be doing an artillery duel. The French have the advantage on that. Went up to go talk to Hill, shifted some forces around. I'll do some recovery. I don't expect much to come of that. But that 3 out of 4 is problematic. This is, I think, the automatic victory, isn't it? I don't remember what the rules are for the auto victory. Okay. Automatic French. If the French destroy both British train units as well as wreck 5 infantry brigades, they win an automatic victory. The British will call a ceasefire, and Junot will be the hero here. Otherwise, there's not much effect. So those breakages won't matter unless the French can advance, which right now, basically in no position to do so. I got 1 unit here. It's kind of getting beat up. The rest of his division isn't moving. But if this division moves, it might be possible to try to force my way to those wagons. But this wagon's awfully far away. So, yeah, I was worried that I take 4 wrecks and the British just say, screw it, man. No, the wagons are important too. Okay. And I don't think I can breach this line. However, the Brits are in a lot of hurt after taking those hits and are not in a very good position. And we may be looking at a situation that's significantly better for the French, perhaps because they didn't attack with as many units or something. I don't know. It's just this scenario is so whacked. Yeah. The Labradors, the Labrador, I don't know. Command has failed and fallen back. The English could call, at this point, for a halt to the battle if they so desired. What are we at here? Where are the rules? I don't know where the fuck they are. Ceasefire. During the British command phase after 12, I can command it. Now, we can look. How many wrecked French divisions are there? That's 1 point for the English. But the Brits have like 3 brigades broken. So that would be 2 in favor of the French so far. And that would be it. It would be a -2. That's a French minor victory. That's as good as you can get in this game. So, you know, the English obviously want to try to push further. Recover some of their units at least, if nothing else. But right now, with these guys running, it's looking kind of appealing, although there is some cav here to help protect, although it's not where it really belongs, but that's okay. And the English pursue. The complicated, you know, slopes in this game, etc., make it much, much harder for me to make decisions on force marching and whatnot. So it didn't happen. We could have charged and tried to run those guns, but the chances of capturing any are fairly low. And if they don't run, they're in trouble. So no problem there, really. I ran out of movement points and probably could have done a forced march, but I really don't want to take additional stragglers. My force is not in great shape right now. So I think that puts us to the 2:30 turn. We gave new orders to Hill and then shifted a unit and moved over here. Okay, so we just had a random event on the French side of the 2:30 p.m. turn. We're running out of day here. Junot wakes up. Later, head wound later drives him to suicide. He realizes he is in the midst of a battle and takes a firmer grip. He may immediately issue 1 round of orders as if he were a level 4 leader, and the -1 on initiative is ignored for the rest of the game. It might be useful. Might not be enough time. I mean, part of the problem is I've got this stable order here. Of course, I think I'm going to need to do something else with it because I'm no longer on the offensive. Not defined is what is, it says immediately issue 1 round of orders as if he were level 4. So I guess he's going to have to write the orders. He's a level 2 commander at his headquarters. If I write orders, they're going to be 2 points worse. If we look here. Aid written is a 0, in person is a +2. They're going to be 2 points worse than what I normally do, which is walk to the place and say, hey, go do this. If I was already in place, that would be fine. But as it stands, I'm not really gaining anything except that I can write it. Well, no, I'm not gaining anything because it won't get there till next turn, and I can walk there and get there till on next turn. With this system, well, as a level 4, he has 16 points, which means that I can do a single written engage order, or I could do 2 oral engage orders. If I'm doing it verbal, in-person verbal, I'm probably, on the space with the one person. I probably cannot get to more than one person with that. And then if, I can write 1 order, essentially. Now, if I do an oral order and send it out instead of in-person verbal, if I do 8 oral, well, 8 oral sucks. It gives me a further -1 to the 8 written. But I could send 2 orders out at that level 4, and with the -1, it comes down to, the same as if I was level 1 in person, and I'm a level 2. So it would be a little worse than giving the orders 1 at a time in person, but I could give out 2 orders at the same time. But the amount of orders that you're able to write in this system compared to the original version in the NBS and the CWB stuff, it definitely feels like I have a lot less capability to send out a shitload of orders with a really good commander. Now, Junot is not normally a really good commander in this game. He's normally just 13, which means I can do 1 order and that's it. I can't even do two complex or engage oral orders. Now, general orders are much, much cheaper. So I might want to do that. I might want to do a written complex order, and then that takes up 10. I have 6 more. I could do a written general order to him and, throw him back to cover. I don't know how much value there is to any of that. I got to think about my victory points here as to what I'm doing. And if I look at these, I don't want to lose entry hex A. That's one thing, which I'm protecting right now. I don't want the headquarters to displace that, And I don't want to take losses, any more losses than I already have. I'm already back a division. So maybe, I don't know. I want these guys to fall back. Writing them the orders, I'll get it there as quickly as walking would get them, but actually it's a little slower because you only get 10 movement points, I think. I'd have to look it up. But I recall from at least the old system or older systems, you get like 10 movement points per turn. Whereas the leader himself gets to move as a leader. Now, they may have changed that. Command and headquarters have 14 movement points, which is a little different. But I think it's 10 movement points. I think in version 2 and of the NBS and the old CWBS, it was 10 movement points, but as a leader, which, is pretty quick. I can probably, in either case, get there. This would be 1, 2. Yeah. So it's 1 turn away in either case. Pretty much half the map. And in addition to scribbling down a couple of orders that'll get their next turn, The French voluntarily failed their rally checks so that they could get out of the way. It's not an optimal situation when you got to do that, but a bunch of disordered stuff in the way, yeah, that's just asking for more casualties, and I don't want to face that. I also got a random event, but from the standard table, and they got a real loose cannon. Loose cannon is on here, but that's not what I mean. I mean artillery accident. They had a limbered artillery, and the effect of that is the battery has had a traffic accident, it's disordered and loses a gun point. So that was this. The problem with the terrain in this is I am used to doing all my movement in column formation, but the English army is incapable of using the combat column. You can remember in Austerlitz I didn't have the combat column. In Montebello I didn't have the combat column for the Allied unit, for the coalition units. But in everything since then, the Allied units, I think, have had combat column. Well, no, the Spaniards, I don't think, did either. And that was hellish as well. But yeah, the terrain becomes even more obnoxious. Now, again, on the layer cake, not such a big deal, because I don't have to worry about most terrain types. But here, now I have to look up, not only make the count, but I kind of have memorized the column chart that I'm fine until I hit a level 3 hex, which I know is at +1, and then the steeper slope is at +3, and I kind of memorized that part of the chart. But now that I'm doing it in line formation, the numbers are all different and are ugly. Indeed, the cost for moving in clear terrain is 2 as well, which I don't think I've been paying attention to. So then, unlike before, where I could just say, well, I want to turn it into combat column because I want to eventually hit the enemy. Here, I've got to convert from line to column and count the column movement, or compare that to the counting of what it would be in line. And this is the kind of micromanagement that I did not like in things like the Battles of the Age of Reason games and the Labatt series, where I'm just having to worry so much about all these individual different types of movement rates, etc., over the different types of terrain. It's painful, and those games have so much maneuver baked into them, where you're paying, all kinds of different costs, and you have extended formations and stuff that are really causing problems, and you really need them there more than you do in this. But here, these terrain lines add yet another layer of pain to just the fairly standard, hey, there's lots of different formations. As opposed to like in CWB, where there's like almost no types of units at all. You don't have to worry about the column to line difference. There's very little difference between the two. You want to be in column if you're on the road. You don't care that much if you're not, unless you're dealing with horrible terrain. Sucks. I know the Brits have, maybe it's down here in orders. Nope. I know the Brits have rules somewhere. No, that's French orders. Which is what I would have thought, but the Brits have some kind of rule that says that the cat, like they did in Espinosa, where the cav is within 6 hexes of like the headquarters, but I don't remember a whole hell of a lot of it. And I just gave orders to the headquarters. You can see Ferguson moved up. He actually chased the cav away because he's on a 3 level hex, and the cav also was, which is fine. But the cav was like only able to charge down here or something. They've got like 3 hexes they could charge into. They're just fucking useless. Which maybe I just shouldn't fucking move them because they are completely useless. But up here there's sort of a plateau, and there's hexes that they can attack in and maybe hexes that they can't. But it looks like a lot of this they'd be capable of working in. These cav were just on the wrong side of the hill. They shouldn't have been on that side. I didn't plan for them to be on that side. But it's where things ended up. But I've got, this is Straggler Recovery. I don't have any, this game doesn't come with them, and I don't want to dig them out of some of the other sets, so I'm using these guys as them. But I'm trying to figure out, hey, where the fuck can the Cav go? And now I can't find it. So there's temporary division. So you know, British special rules, I look general. Don't see it. I think I'm going to find it here. I look under wreckage, it's probably not there. Temporary divisions, it's not part of a temporary division. I know I can commit Cav to temporary divisions, or I think I can. I don't know shit. But I don't see anything here about Cav. Moving brigades, okay, maybe that's it because these are Cav brigades. Infantry brigades are handled this way. I don't see anything about the Cav here. Sir Henry Burrard, I don't expect there to be, there's no difference between the command situation when he's in play or not, so I don't expect it there and I don't see it. Infantry training, not going to be there. Light infantry, it's not that. Lack of horses, well, lack of horses would make sense, but the Cav has horses, so it actually isn't that. Case shot. Okay, I forgot about this rule. I don't know if the French, I don't think the English artillery have done anything. They enjoy a +1 die roll modifier, which appears to be a penalty when firing at artillery. That's the only thing I would have fired at, and they didn't hit anything. Enjoy could be a mistake, could be a joke. I don't know either way. I see nothing about where the Cav can operate. So then I look here, and I don't see anything under, okay, the orders. I don't see anything under orders. I don't see anything here. Variants, this isn't a variant, and I'm out of rules, man. And I have no fucking idea where that is. This is historical stuff. It's not that. I look again. This is like the 4th time I've looked, and I'm just not fucking seeing it. Now, aha. There it is. Right? No. It's also not in the errata that I converted over, but I read it somewhere. I just don't know where. Like, this happens to me a lot of times. I remember seeing a rule. I can usually find it. This is one of the few times in a gamer's game where I can't fucking find the rule. Now, scenario rules tend to be more poorly laid out than the others, but I mean, I've looked over every fucking thing. I thought I had looked at everything. Apparently, I hadn't. Under general, it actually spells things out. Infantry brigades can't have, artillery and Cav can only move about freely within 8 commander movement points of the army headquarters. If Wellesley is a casualty, he's replaced by Ferguson or Hill, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, this is a lot of stuff, but yeah, I didn't expect it to be there. So I looked even less deeply than I do when I'm skimming. But, you know, the place I most expected it was in the moving brigades, which it is a brigade, I guess. I don't know, they're regiments, right? Do they say what they are? No, I can't even find it. Artillery and cavalry units. No, they're units. They might be squadrons for all I know. Anyway, so I know what their limits are now. And God, this game is pissing me off right now. Doesn't help that EU's rules are fucking terrible. I had thoughts that I could come up here and, you know, get a couple of turns knocked out because there's not much happening. But honestly, ferrying troops around using Burrard and all that shit, it's just pissing me off so much, you know. And I've spent so much effort on getting almost nothing done that I have no interest. But basically, he ferried this up to here and then walked back. And, you know, part of it is he doesn't walk around. Like in most games, the leader will walk up to some units and move with them for a while if this is the kind of mechanism they have. And then he can go and move some other units and whatnot. But here it's varying movement point costs. So this moves by its infantry movement point cost, while the commander is traveling with it the whole time but paying his own movement point costs. So I have to keep movement point costs for the moving stack as well as the commander separately in order to make this work. Now, luckily it's a tiny, tiny scenario, but I would not want to play this shit in a bigger one. I kind of thought this was exciting, you know, because of all the crap that's going on, how weird and how this battle could develop and whatnot. But it's just too much of a fucking headache. And you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to roll for that fucker. Good, he didn't come in. Yeah. French side of the 230 turn, as you notice, orders were automatically accepted. Just both of them. High chart on the 8 side of the table and some nice big die rolls. So we've got him deploying here. We've got the route continuing here and an attempt to fall back. It's kind of problematic because with the artillery moving over kind of iffy terrain, painful stuff was going to happen. So, but my skirmishers ended up disordering some Brits. I'm hoping the Brits have trouble, because they're going to either have to move forward in the line, which is very painful, or convert to column, move forward, convert to line to attack. We'll see if they can get it in. I got some cav defending me here. Oh, this is a 3-color hex, damn it. Okay, that was useless. Let's move the cav. Let's move it up this way. I can't charge in the hex that would have been available for charging. And with the disordered unit, that's fair. I didn't check those blown morale units, or those blown cav units. They're awake and happy. Or as happy as they can be. I should have walked over and talked to Kellerman last turn. Because I wrote my orders. I would have been able to move after that. But I didn't. It was okay. And that'll bring it over to the Brits. I'm getting fucking addicted to having steak every night. It's like, it's like 8 pounds, isn't it? No, 4 pounds. 4 pounds of steak, I think. I don't know, but I'm slicing off little bits and frying it up with eggs every night, and I'm getting used to it. And like anything that I eat, I'm like, oh, I'll have that again. I'll have that again. But normally I would have frozen a big hunk of it, but I've got some steak in the freezer already, and so I'm just like, fine. But it is very easy to get used to as a meal, and it's kind of nice because it's almost cooking, you know. And Ferguson's command keeps pushing forward. I counted it all out. The only way I could do it is force marching to hit his force, and that's not really a great idea. It would make sense if I had, some kind of real reason to launch the attack, but the main thing I'm doing is I'm trying to close ground. I'm trying to catch up to these guys who keep voluntarily continuing their route to get away from the Brits. Given how far the Brits are now, they may attempt a rally there. And Hill has started his movement. That leaves this guy and this guy as the only effective things. This is a piece of shit. It's bad Portuguese troops, I think. Both those units need to recover, so I didn't really want to use Berard to move them. Now, Ferguson is getting beaten up. You can see, or was beaten up, but I have to include him, and that means core stoppage checks, because I want one of these leaders. And if I don't send Ferguson's brigade in with his division, then I have to choose a different force, and the only other one I have is Crawford. So to get these things operating, and the similar situation, not as bad, Hill has Ackland under his command. That was probably a mistake because Ackland is also beat up. What I really should have done is left that behind to recover as well, but now it's chasing Hill and moving up. And Hill and Ferguson are my 2-point leaders. My only other leader that I have available is Crawford, and he's a 1, which is not, particularly helpful. Managed to fall back a little further. The routed unit's beginning to rally. This is just skirmishers. The other thing ran away, but I made an attempt. And that final unit, this is a destroyed unit. Well, straggled unit. That final unit came in. I assume Junot has to give it orders. It's kind of weird. It like comes in and can be attached to anything. I think he's got to order it to attach to something, but who knows. But I have plenty of time to do with that, and even if I didn't, it is in a position where it could be of some defensive support towards protecting the exit hex. The French are not going to win this battle, right? They're not going to push back and throw the British off the field, which means Junot, one way or another, is out of Portugal. The only question is, is he going to fall back on Lisbon and maybe gather up forces, and who knows what happens, or is it going to be more like a historical result? It looks more like a pure draw. There's not a lot of day left. The British units aren't in great shape, so I think Junot's going to be able to fall back instead of just surrendering the entire country. English side of things, whoever's here, it's not Ferguson, or no, it is Ferguson. Ferguson's command continued pushing forward. This unit was threatening to move on to the cav, so I did a cav charge with this other cav in a square. Cav bounced off. No big deal either way. Gotta remove these shaken markers. We had a recovery over here. Briard's still not getting his headquarters move that he wants, and he's only moving to Vimiero, which now seems definitely insufficient for controlling the cav. The artillery's been commissioned to work with the infantry units. On the other hand, the cav is not terribly useful, but it could be of value over here. So I kind of want to do that. I am playing so fucking slowly because I'm playing so much damn Raid or doing other things on the computer. Just fucking around watching videos or anything. It's just so fucking hard for me to come up and do stuff. I'm hoping that with the review copy I've got, that I'm excited enough that I play it, that I really want to play it like I did with some of the lighter stuff. I'm just worried because it is a fairly heavy game. And then the other thing that I have, I know that I'll just play through. I'll have that kind of drive, but I just don't have it, coming up to play these tactical games. I don't know. It's not just NBS that's been kicking my ass this way. It's really almost anything where I can justify walking away easily. The highly interactive stuff I'm playing more. I'm not sure I'm happy about that, but because I don't usually like that kind of play. I like I do something for 15 minutes and then I come up and I play for 15 minutes and that kind of, but now it's like I do something for 3 or 4 hours and I come up and play for 15 minutes if I'm lucky. Screw it, I'm coming up more often. I can let my raid play itself a little bit and do more of this. The main thing I'm giving up is sitting on my ass watching news, which I don't know. I'm doing more of that than I was when I was working, when I had it on while I worked, and it's just pathetic. It's like I think I should be playing games, man. Okay, so this was kind of an exciting turn. I did it. I did both sides of the turn. The French fell back a little further. Great. And the English come pursuing. And Ferguson's command took a little bit of fire here. There's some artillery there. Great. Nothing else really happened. But over here where Hill advanced, boy was there a problem. The French cav was close by. Now the cav, ended up hitting a couple of squares, and it didn't go well. They managed to break off against one. The other one, they kind of got mauled, and that's this unit back here. But at the same time, Hill advanced here and right into the face of that big 4-point French gun. By the way, the English had another artillery accident, and that one unit that was half size is gone now. Hill got killed or wounded or something over here. That means his command is gone and falls back into like automatic defensive orders. So we're not going to be pressing here, but the Hill unit, I think it is the Hill unit here. No, it's the Crawford unit, one of the decent ones. The Hill unit's kind of beat up. The Crawford unit is almost broken now, sitting there right in front of the French. Not a good situation. Hill's whole command is gone. I could conceivably raise Crawford and reinstitute that command, but it's one brigade now. I don't remember whose. It's this one over here. Fane. Fane is the one that did a damn good job on the infantry. This is a French skirmisher that's kind of getting lost behind enemy lines. But yeah, the French cav did not do much. You know, it takes away like a movement point from the Brits. A movement point that would have scared the French cav away anyway, but they took casualties instead. But overall, I think the British are just going to fail here as well. And next turn, we can start rolling this thing. I'll keep it here so I remember, because otherwise I'll just forget. But yeah, the English headquarters, I got a circle on that. How'd that happen? Let's move them up to Vimiero. And these guys both recovered successfully. All right. The English, well, no, they can't. There's a restriction. I was going to say, they're going to call the ceasefire now, but I think they're not allowed to do it until, where's the ceasefire? Until their command phase. So they would like to end the game right now, because that Crawford brigade is not quite wrecked yet, but it will be very, very shortly. Now, they recovered a wrecked unit, and might be able to recover another one. Who else is it? Ackland. So it's probably about even, but this will be the wrong turn to do it, because the French are almost certain to finish that thing's wrecked stat. Well, no, not almost certain. Their artillery is it's better than 50-50, though. They're going to cause a casualty or something, which means the English do actually want to play out a little more. I thought, yeah, we want to call it now, because, you know, this may be the best points we're going to get. We're not going to plow the French. We're not going to be able to move them back, and we're not going to, on the attack, we're not going to do more damage to them than they do to us. I found another gun I didn't realize I had. Lausanne here had one deployed. 2 heavy gun points. Took a shot at this square formation with it, now that I noticed it. That was the only thing it would have been able to shoot at anyway. It would have gotten an opportunity fire when the thing moved in or went to square. And since the cav were close and were charging, I would have held for the square. But we'll just ignore that. However, they didn't get anything there. You can see we disordered this, routed this. The English are being pushed back. I haven't done any of the French movement. I just did their pre-fire and whatnot. And yeah, it's pretty painful. Too exciting happened. The French fell back here. I think the English want to calculate their points. See what's going to happen, because they're going into their command phase at this point. By the way, I got another Juno wakes up. I get to roll this thing. No, we got a random event. Let's see what it is. I don't usually do these right on camera, but that has to happen before the 7. It's a cav recovery. We haven't lost any calves, so that's not an issue. I like the random events in it. It's a very Berg-like feature. I really like that they added it into sort of the base game in this version 3.0. Okay. So, what are our points? The Brits, how many wrecked French divisions do we have? We don't know. We honestly don't know. This is the problem. I would probably a couple. Yeah, we're going to want to recover before we call things off. So, because if we pull back a little bit, as long as the French don't come after us, then we don't need the ceasefire. Of course, the French have not been able to recover, and if we pull back, they're able to recover. Screw it, we're going to call the ceasefire. Okay, we're just going to do it, and we're going to call the victory here. Okay, so let's count, because I don't want to fiddle around with all the pieces when there's almost no effect. So we'll start counting. Wrecked French divisions. We have 1, 2. So that's 2 British points. Okay. Permanently wrecked French, none. Headquarters didn't move. Hex A didn't happen. Okay. How many wrecked British victory brigades are there? I have a count at 4. 1, 2. Looks like it's actually only 3. Yeah, I have the count at 3. So, okay, we'll keep the total points there. Permanently wrecked, no. No trains. Vimiero Hill is over here, I guess. And definitely don't have that. And we don't have the landing. So it's going to be a 1-point difference in front of the French, which is an inconclusive draw. The campaign drags on, as you know, with draws. The French minor victory wouldn't have been sufficient either. So, yeah, I can't imagine how you can have the landing in sight very easily. I mean, maybe if you skirt around and don't do shit else with some artillery, with one of your brigade divisions. You know, maybe you have a battered division and you send it around to just do that and get some bombardment in place. That might not be too bad. So yeah, we ended up with the complete draw situation. And I don't think the British were going to do much better than that. If they withdrew and recovered, one of their brigades or something, right now, Ashland could have recovered. Crawford is already broken. Fane is the one that might break. Crawford just broke. That's right. Yeah. So we're at 3. We would have been able to maybe recover 1. The French probably would have been able to recover 1 as we withdraw. After we stop moving, if we settle down and tried to recover things, Crawford maybe could have recovered. It's only 1 over if it rallies. I don't know. It only would have 1 turn now. It wouldn't. I mean, it's a B. It might. Yeah, I think this was actually a good choice to end it here for the British, although they couldn't know that at the time, simply because the French units, this one probably wouldn't recover. That's the busted up unit that just came back. But the other French units might get 2 per, and there's not a bad shot of them getting, the 4 points that this one needs, for example. Yeah, but it's only 1 unit. Yeah, I don't know. I think it works out about equal. So that's Vimiero. It's going to be a while before we get to Talavera, because I got something big and then something very, very tiny. A repeat of something. But let's send this up, and yippee. Still haven't finished my rules. But I'm close, and it's probably going to be a little while before any videos come up, because I think I'm going to have to pre-play a little bit of it to try to get some idea of what the fuck, how the game works. It's written in hieroglyphics, so that's problematic.